Greetings, fellow carbon-based bipeds. I am Scott Rose, and you are watching Explosions and Stuff. Today, I'll be reviewing the 2015 film Vendetta, starring Dean Cain, The Big Show, Paul White, and Michael Eklund. An overview of the movie? After his wife is killed by a criminal he thought he had put away, police officer Mason Danvers sets out to get his revenge. First, Danvers kills the brother of the man who killed his wife. Then, after being placed in the same prison as the man who killed his wife, Danvers sets out dismantling his criminal empire one person at a time. The pros of this movie? Well, first of all, The Big Show was just an amazing villain in this movie. Like, he was just this big, dominated hunk of man meat who just took everybody out who was in his way. And it was just beautiful. I mean, he is decent and he's good in his wrestling career because he's most known as being a professional wrestler in the WWE. But this guy, I didn't know that he could be that cruel and that heartless and just that pure evil that he was in this movie. I didn't know that he was capable of doing that kind of thing, and he just pulled it off beautifully. He was perfect as the main villain in this movie. Also, the practical effects in this film were just gorgeous. They were beautiful. And I credit that to the Saska sisters directing it and the fact that they're mostly known for directing horror movies. So they know the importance of good practical effects and good wound makeup and things like that. They know how important that kind of stuff is. So they went with the good stuff. They went with good quality practical effects, and they were just gorgeous in this movie. And I really loved the idea of how Danvers just got lost in revenge. Like, his wife died while she was pregnant with his kid. He didn't care about anything but getting his revenge. It wasn't like, oh, is there this point of redemption in the future? No, he was just out to wreck stuff. He was out to mess up people's lives and take down all the people who ruined his life, who took away his family, and he was just out to just get revenge on everyone who had anything to do with his wife's murder. And it was gorgeous, and it was beautiful, and it's not something you see every day of how this person he's a good guy, but he just gets taken over with revenge, and that's all he cares about. And he doesn't care if he dies in the process of getting his revenge. You can actually see a physical change in Danvers' portrayal. Like, he was this nice, clean-cut kind of guy, and then he goes to prison, he loses all color, he just looks like he hasn't slept in a month, and he just looks evil, and just like the devil took over his soul, and he's been possessed, and he's just out to wreck people's lives. I loved it! The cons of this movie? Well, yeah, the characters in it were pretty shallow. Let's be honest. Almost every character in this movie was one-dimensional. I think Danvers was the most fleshed out character in this movie, and he was two-dimensional. He had good guy, cop guy, and then asshole out for revenge. That was it. Those were the only two personalities Danvers had. And he was the most developed character in this movie. Everyone else was just one-dimensional, like Sleazy Warden is sleazy, and, this big mean bad guy is a big mean, and he's bad. I mean, it was just really one-dimensional as far as the characters went. And getting on to the Sleazy Warden, it was clear that he was a sleazy warden. He didn't look anything like a warden, really. He looked like some guy who should be running a nightclub. They really dropped the ball just with his appearance. You knew just by looking at this guy that he was dirty, that he was a criminal, and he was in on this whole shenanigans and just this whole mess. You knew that from the moment you saw him, because his clothes were too expensive, and he had a fancy tie and a fancy tie clip, and everything about him just screamed money. He's a warden of a prison. He's not going to have a lot of money. But yet he looked like some guy who owned a nightclub. No, Make him look like an actual freaking warden, not some nightclub jockey owner. You don't need that nonsense. And also, this one's more of just a minor annoyance. It won't annoy a lot of people, but it annoyed me. Big Show had a gun in this movie. He needed a bigger gun. Just for aesthetic reasons. Let's get to the point here. The Big Show, Paul White, is 7 feet tall and about 500 pounds. He's a pretty big guy. He's holding just your average pistol, like your average police issue pistol. But when he holds it, it looks like an average sized adult holding a child's toy. He needed a bigger gun just so it wouldn't look so comical of him holding it and steadying his arm. He doesn't even look like he needs to steady his arm. He can just pull the trigger with his pinky and be fine. They need to give him a bigger gun, otherwise it just looks freaking comical. The best action scene of the movie? That would have to be the riot at the end of the movie. And I mean, I can't really just describe this riot and do it justice, because let's be honest, this riot was like the last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. The one riot scene, the one action scene, the one fight was 15 to 20 minutes long, and it had everything. It had the Big Show just taking out guys and breaking their necks and throwing them around. It had Dean Cain fighting off almost every single prisoner in the prison, just outnumbered with some homemade brass knuckles and just going to town on people. It had people getting shot. It had people dying. It had people getting stabbed. It had one-on-one fights between Dean Cain and the Big Show. Just everything about this epic riot at the end of the movie was fantastic. My overall thoughts on the movie? This is a revenge movie done right. I have to give it 2 thumbs up. Having Danvers get lost in his revenge was great, and they did it perfectly. Jen and Sylvia Soska directed this, and they're known for directing horror movies and really gory slasher flicks, which I think is a great thing to bring to an action movie. It means they know how to capture exciting action scenes, and they also understand the importance of good quality practical effects. I'd love to see them do more action movies in the future. Yes, the characters aren't that well developed, but that's not why people are watching this movie in the first place. If you want to see a great revenge flick and don't mind the shallow characters, then you need to check out Vendetta. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like it and subscribe to my channel for new action movie reviews posted every week. Also, if you have any recommendations for movies you would like me to review in the future, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you and have a nice day. Like he was just this big, dominated hunk of man meat